This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time!
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah!
I finished these fights.
Give me a hell yeah!
Top Rope Nation.
Learn to love it. It's the best thing going today.
Top Rope Nation is on the air. It is May 11th, 2017, and this is your number one source for pro graps discussion and sometimes mildly amusing analysis. I am Ryan Drosty, the editor-in-chief of TopRopePress.com, joined here, number one, by my longtime co-host, I think since episode number 2. He is the master of the Tilt-A-Whirl backbreaker himself, coming in from Cleveland, Ohio. Kyle Ross in the house. Kyle, what's up?
That's right. Okay. Good. How's it going, man?
I haven't introduced you in a long time as with some kind of like wrestling move tie-in, so I felt like I had to do it this time.
Okay, yeah. I appreciate it. The Tilt-A-Whirl backbreaker. Yeah. You don't see that very often.
That used to be like the weekly thing. I'd give some kind of random intro for you, so came up with that earlier this afternoon.
Oh.
And joining Kyle this week from across town, my boo from the Lou himself, Justin Joint in the house. Justin, what's going on?
Hey, little known fact, there used to be a fourth person on the show, but he was fired for investigating our ties to Rusev.
We had to get rid of that guy. He was getting a little too close to the old Top Rope Nation Oval Office, so
Sad.
had to kick him in the butt, get him out of there.
Bad.
Guys, it's been kind of, as far as WWE goes, there's a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon. WWE, New Japan, Ring of Honor, Evolve. We're going to get into that later. But as far as the TV this week goes, not a whole lot to talk about, at least on my end. Kind of planning for the show this week. I was kind of wondering, what are we going to talk about? Because anytime WWE has TV in the UK, it seems like they're kind of just like stopgap shows. And I don't know what you guys thought about Raw and SmackDown this week. I didn't feel like anything major other than the Braun Strowman injury angle, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. I didn't feel like anything really noteworthy happened on television this week. Kyle, what'd you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I would agree with that. I think Raw had the excuse of the Strowman injury. They had to rewrite it fairly late. But, as far as with SmackDown, as far as a show that, you're 2 weeks away from a pay-per-view, I mean, yeah, they had Mahal beat Orton, which was the right call in the 6-man, but it didn't, that show didn't really make me care more about Backlash at all. It was just kind of there. No real storylines were advanced or anything.
You think it was another week where Raw was a better show this week?
I don't know.
I think they just canceled each other out.
Yeah, I don't. I would say a no contest. There was no winner.
Yeah, I agree.
I did not like, Justin, I don't know what you thought. I did not like that Miz and Ambrose gimmick, the code GMs filling in for Angle. I thought that was pretty lame.
Yeah, no, I wasn't a fan. Really, the only thing I liked about Raw was the Sheamus and Cesaro gauntlet match. Other than it kind of buries all the other tags.
Yeah, I was going to say, Golden Truth really tried. I thought to get some excitement. God bless him. Dustin Rhodes can still cut a nice promo.
That's true.
But yeah, wow, to do a gauntlet match and have a heel team beat every other team in the division. Eesh. Enzo Amore, I'll still stick up for him. They beat him too much.
I can't believe you're sticking up for him.
Speaking of Enzo, did you see the Usos stealing Enzo and Cass's gimmick on SmackDown? In a very poor imitation.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
It was just nice to see them on TV. What a bizarre tag title run they've had. They're like there's more weeks that they're not on TV, I feel, than there are.
Then if only we could get that Universal Champion on TV, we'd be all set.
Yeah.
So that's actually, let's lead off with that. It's one of the biggest stories this week in wrestling. Braun Strowman, who we've been really high on here on the program in recent weeks, has the injury. He's going to be out, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. Was that the latest I read?
8, I think it was.
Okay. So it's kind of thrown their plans in for a loop this summer. We know that Strowman was probably going to challenge Lesnar. And now we're looking at maybe like Rollins stepping in, Balor stepping in. We're gonna talk about this, but first of all,
wait. When and where was Strowman going to challenge Brock Lesnar? What show is that going to be?
Oh, Great Balls of Fire.
Great Balls
Jerry
of
Lee
Fire.
Lewis. Which I got to say, last week's show, if you listen to the audio only podcast, one of my greatest achievements was the show close with Jerry Lee Lewis played us out.
Yes.
Loved it. Guys, if you're listening to the podcast, by the way, subscribe on iTunes, help out the show, look us up, leave us a rating, 5-star rating, helps us out. So, if you're watching us on YouTube, the audio versions of our show are always slightly different. We add in some sound effects. So, hey, you can listen to us twice. 2 for the price of 1. Why not? How surprised were you guys when you heard about Braun Strowman's injury? Were you depressed? Did it send you to the liquor cabinet, Justin?
I'm always in the liquor cabinet anyways. I was disappointed to hear about it because he felt like the first kind of natural big thing to come into the WWE for quite a while. It felt like he was going to be something really special, and he still will be. It does feel like a momentum crusher a little bit. Yeah,
no doubt. Kyle.
Yeah, and it really sucks that they did a worked injury, and then it turned out that he actually was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had talked about all the they had Angle when he did the promo. All these guys have sustained these injuries. He met it was all work. Everyone's like, oh, whatever, they're selling it, and then it turns out Strowman's actually hurt. That sucks. It hurts in a sense that we're going to have a lot of blah raws, I think, over the next couple weeks and maybe even months. Remember, both brands are running pay-per-views in June and July. So it's not like, oh, Raw's got one in June, SmackDown's got one in July. Nope, they each have one in June and July. So it's quite a lot of, content they got to fill with the main event scene that you got guys there, but it just doesn't seem there was a lot of intrigue when you watch Raw. But, I wrote about it last night. I think that they're just going to reshuffle the order of the challengers for Lesnar. It looks like it's going to be, like you said, Rollins or Balor at Great Balls of Fire.
Goodness gracious.
I could see them doing a number one contenders match at Extreme Rules to set that up, to see who gets the shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like I said, I don't think it matters if it's Balor or Rollins. I was thinking Balor might be better just because he's the Universal Champion. Just because he had never lost. He's the former Universal Champion, and they can tie that loose end together.
That all depends on what kind of Lesnar match they do. If they're just going to do the normal crush him in 4 minutes, then definitely not Balor.
Well, they should do that with anyone. I don't know. When's the last time they did that? The Goldberg match, I guess, was short, but it was competitive. It was booked as a competitive match. Mm-hmm. When's the last time that Lesnar just was it Ambrose at WrestleMania last year? That was awful.
SummerSlam against Orton.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
It was SummerSlam against Orton, yes.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed when I heard about the injury, just because I feel like it's been quite a while since WWE had a guy who was organically getting over with the crowd like Strowman. To this degree. We've talked about on the show how he's getting the reactions they want for Roman Reigns, and every wrestling podcast in the universe has been talking about for years now the Roman Reigns thing. Will he catch on with the crowd? But Strowman was catching on with the crowd, and it was fun to watch. Gave me a reason to watch Raw every week, and I think you guys are right. It definitely takes a whole lot away from the momentum on Monday nights, that's for sure. So do you guys have a preference for who you want to see wrestling Lesnar in July?
Rollins for me, just because I was kind of excited about the Balor and Wyatt feud that they've been kind of teasing a little bit.
See, I'm not as excited about that just because I feel that it's very obvious where that goes. Wyatt will do something nefarious. It brings out the Demon King. I guess that's kind of cool, but I don't know. I guess it's just all too predictable. I think I really don't think it matters because neither guy's beating Lesnar is the key. Mm-hmm. I don't know, because it seems like they're still doing Rollins Joe, but they could just like throw them in there could be like a multi-person match at Extreme Rules. I could see them doing for the number one contendership. Like I said, I think the more interesting thing is, what do they do with Reigns now? Because Reigns was set the headline Extreme Rules against Strowman in an ambulance match. So, he's got to work. He's got to be programmed with somebody. And it's either going to be Miz or Wyatt, I would assume. I'd seen Wyatt initially reported. That does not excite me at all. I'll say that.
Now, didn't we just get that 2 summers ago?
Yes. Yeah. Like, you talk about preference. I have a clear preference there. I absolutely think, a Reigns Miz program would be good. It's never been done. And I think Miz is a guy, one of the few guys really on either brand capable of getting the desired reaction, from WWE's perspective that they want for Reigns.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like Miz could kind of pull Reigns up as far as his mic ability goes. Like one of the criticisms with Reigns has been his ability on the mic, which has gotten better. But Miz is so good. I mean, arguably the best talker in the company right now, that I think it would elevate Roman's game a little bit to have a...
Well, either that or put a spotlight on how Roman's not even close to Miz's level.
Well, but I think that's the point for me, is he'll have to excel. Like it'll push him to get better. But no,
they're not
I
going
see
to
what you mean.
WWE will not let Reigns be put in a position where he'll be made to look awful on the mic.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they give him terrible material that they think is good, I guess. But, part of it with Roman is he just doesn't have a great babyface delivery. I think he would have we've talked about this ad nauseum before. He's great heel delivery.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of full of himself. He comes across as, kind of full of himself.
A dude you would love to hate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that Miz is beating Ambrose next week for the Intercontinental title? Because that's what makes me kind of, I'd written in there, okay, well, I've heard Wyatt reported, but I said don't rule out Miz, because it seems that they're fast tracking that Intercontinental title match between Miz and Ambrose. So I can see them doing the change next week, and then Reigns and Miz becomes an Intercontinental title program, kind of separate from because you got to keep Reigns away from the number one contendership if you want to do this long build towards Lesnar. So I think that's the way to do it.
I think the belt's kind of died on Ambrose recently. I think that's a good plan, because if you inject some life into the feud and then you have Miz and Reigns, with Reigns being one of the top faces of Raw, I think it automatically makes that belt a big deal again. I think it's kind of been forgotten with Ambrose. So, Justin, where you at?
No, I think you guys kind of hit the nail on the head. It is interesting to see how that affects other guys, like what happens with Samoa Joe then going forward. I mean, does he fall way back into the mid-card, lower mid-card?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're obviously still doing something with him and Rollins. So let's say, again, this isn't confirmed. It may not happen at all, but let's just say hypothetically they do Reigns versus Miz at Extreme Rules, and that's an Intercontinental title match. You got 5 other quote-unquote main event guys: Rollins, Joe, Balor, Wyatt, Ambrose. You could just do Rollins, Joe as a blow-off, one-on-one match. And then the other 3, Ambrose, Wyatt, and Balor, you could do a match for them to see who works Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire. Or you could just make it a fatal 5-way and just put all 5 guys in there and just be like, hey, one of these guys gets Lesnar.
Yeah. I think for me personally, I was thinking about it while you guys were talking. Who would I rather see wrestle Lesnar? I'd much rather have it be Rollins than Balor. Just because I feel like Balor's missed so much of this brand split with his injury last summer that I just don't want to see him thrown into a match with Brock Lesnar and get destroyed. I feel like when Balor challenges for the Universal title, I want to know that he actually has a chance to win it, with him having, never really lost the belt. I feel like Rollins in a match with Brock, if he loses, it wouldn't damage him as much, which he will lose. It wouldn't damage him as much as Balor, who kind of needs to be rebuilt a bit after missing so much time.
Yeah, and plus, I think a Rollins-Lesnar match where Rollins gets to play the face and, look stronger than he did the last time they faced, they could probably put on a really good match.
Yeah. If they let Brock do anything besides F.
I mean, Balor and Lesnar would be good too, I think. Yeah. So Strowman, I mean, like I said, I think this whole situation, while yeah, it's going to lead to some kind of maybe blah Raws without Strowman, it's going to be Strowman and Lesnar at SummerSlam, I assume. And then, so you'll get the desired match. And then what's interesting then is, do you entertain the idea? We've talked about this before, man. That's the interesting one when it gets to Strowman versus Lesnar, because man, could you make a case for putting the Universal title on Braun Strowman?
I certainly would. I think it's the right move. No doubt about it. Brock being gone so much. I know he's supposed to work this year more than usual, moving forward from the summer on. But man, he has just killed that belt. Nobody.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's like, why do it's almost like you could make a case for why do they have 2 world titles?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's always been a big debate with the brands, but is there too many championships, whatever? I mean, it's kind of weird if you're going to make a big point for each brand to have a championship, but one brand, the guy's not around. It is. I don't know. It's kind of odd.
Yeah. Justin, if you're booking that match at SummerSlam and it's Strowman, Lesnar, who do you got going over?
I'd say Braun all the way. I mean, why just have one monster in Lesnar when you could have 2 on the roster? Because, Lesnar's not going to lose anything by taking the pinfall.
Yeah.
Whereas you can build up Braun even more. Plus, Braun will be there every week.
Yeah. Braun getting a victory over Lesnar does so much more for the future than Brock beating Braun. So, yeah.
Interesting too is, where this Strowman thing, okay, in the short term, it's no good, but in the long term, it's okay. You get to push that rubber match with Roman because, they've still got to do that back further because, they're 1-1 in the storyline. So, that's another big match they have for, probably No Mercy, which I know was announced today. That's a Raw pay-per-view in September.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, if the whole point of this is for them, because Vince wants Reigns and Lesnar at WrestleMania, this is a way to have the title on TV every week from like SummerSlam until Royal Rumble, and then Lesnar could take it back off of Braun and then, carry it into WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about this? Because, all right, let's just accept the Reigns-Lesnar pairing for WrestleMania, okay? What if Lesnar's the challenger in that situation?
I think it would.
I like it.
I like it.
Because here's the thing, everyone keeps bemoaning, this long build. Oh, you're really going to do that? What if that's not what they do? What if Reigns is the champion going into that match?
Not only that, but you probably don't want Reigns winning another Rumble for a while.
That's what I'm saying. And it's in Philly, isn't it, this year? Where he was unmercifully booed. It'll have been 3 years prior.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like the decision. I think I use the term rehab the title with the IC title. Man, the longer they have this belt on Brock Lesnar, they're going to have to rehab the Universal title. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons to put it at least short term on Braun, is to get that belt out there in front of the viewing public again, to make people care about it. Because if they honestly have Brock Lesnar hold the belt for a year, rarely on TV, why does anyone care about a title match for a title that they never see?
Well, I mean, I guess the idea is, it's a title match is rare. It's a big deal.
It's really rare in this case.
But I don't know. It just, we'll see. I mean, we'll see if the pay-per-views with Lesnar draw significantly more. If there's any metrics that suggest there's a lot more interest. Again, given what they pay Lesnar, I don't think it's justified. Like if I'm looking like a sports team, like WWE, like a sports team, Lesnar's killing WWE would be. I mean, obviously they don't have a salary cap, but Lesnar to me is kind of hurting.
Yeah,
I don't think he's worth it. I think he would be considered overpaid.
He's certainly overpaid. I mean, there is no argument at this point, several years after he came back, maybe initially when he first came back, but there's no argument to pay him, because how is he benefiting the company at all monetarily? You can look at the 80s when Hogan was a champion, and yeah, he was rarely on TV, but he was working the house show circuit full time.
And when you look at the Hogan house show versus a non-Hogan house show, wow. there was a colossal difference.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard people use that argument. Well, Hogan was rarely on TV except for like the Saturday nights main events and stuff in the 80s. But that was a house show business back then. He was working full time, selling tons of
TV
tickets.
was so different back then. TV was 5 squash matches and Gene Okerlund doing the event center.
Yeah. So, I mean, now with Brock, it's like, what is he? He's literally nowhere to be found. He's not on the house show circuit. Once in a while, he wrestles, but very rarely. He's not on TV.
He doesn't even do house shows.
He just sits at home, collects a paycheck, and then he's like the highest paid guy on the roster. So,
I got another guy who would be a great contender for Brock. This is an outside the box idea. This is fantasy booking alert.
All right, let's hear it.
They got to turn this Bray Wyatt babyface. I don't know how many damn times I'm going to say that on this program. Bray Wyatt is a face going against Brock Lesnar. You know, people are always concerned. Oh, you know, no one ever takes the full timer seriously against Lesnar and stuff. Give me a babyface Bray Wyatt challenging Brock Lesnar. That is a money match.
Now, I don't know if he listens to the podcast, but Bray Wyatt is a big fan of our Twitter account, I must tell you. So, guys, follow us at TR Nation Podcast. Whoa. How about that segue?
Wow, that's incredible.
It's true. Justin Joint has sent out 2 tweets that Bray Wyatt liked in recent weeks. And it's not like Bray Wyatt's out there liking every tweet. If you look at his Twitter page, he doesn't like much. Yeah. But he is a fan of the Top Rope Nation podcast.
Bray Wyatt, like the fact that you need to turn babyface, buddy.
We are on your side, Bray. Actually, one of the tweets was about that, wasn't it, Justin? That he liked?
Yeah. It was save. I did a hashtag like save Bray, turn Bray.
Yeah, and he liked it.
Am I the only one on this? I mean, you guys, right? I mean, I think like he's been a heel now for years. There is a great baby face running this guy.
Yeah.
Well, and plus any dread from his current bad guy character is dead. They've completely killed that.
Yeah, I mean, he did. I guess he technically won the feud with Orton, but I mean, he'd lost so many, and that's another thing with Balor. I mean, would he win that feud? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it could rejuvenate him. That's for sure. I've been waiting for this.
I just love that pairing, I guess. Mm-hmm. I know Lesnar kind of, I don't know if he vetoed it or whatever. Remember? Because that was planned for WrestleMania 32 when Lesnar wound up working Ambrose. Remember? They had teased it in the Rumble. The Wyatts dumped Lesnar, and then like nothing happened with that.
Yeah.
Now, judging by his match with Ambrose, it was probably a blessing in disguise for Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
Dean Ambrose has never been the same since that match. I'm going to say it.
Yeah, that was bad. That was really bad. And then he went into that horrible Jericho feud too. That was not a good time for Dean.
I thought for sure he was going to win that match at Mania. Like with it having all the weapons and everything. It was the perfect excuse. Like if they want to protect Brock, well, he can use whatever weapons he needs to use on him to get the win, and he just got destroyed. Wow.
It reminded me kind of like that Undertaker Ric Flair WrestleMania match from years like at 18, when I'm like, 18. Okay, the way this has been booked, you have to put the baby face over, right? But the whole time I'm watching, like, they're not going to. And they did. It was the same damn thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not wishing injury on Dean Ambrose, but I don't know if there's anybody else on the roster that would benefit more from a injury hiatus, a long, like 7 to 8 month injury hiatus than Dean Ambrose.
Well, it's funny. And it's funny you say that. He's kind of gone didn't he work the most matches last year of anybody? There was like a stat that had come out that nobody worked more in 2016 than Dean Ambrose.
I didn't see that, but it wouldn't surprise me.
And there is a metric. I forgot who showed it. It was really interesting that, the previous year, I think it was Rollins, and then he got hurt. So, I mean, again, it's funny we talk about Rollins and Ambrose. Here's a segue. I wanted to bring them up. You've got Rollins, Ambrose, and Reigns all in the same brand, right? Yep. They're all baby faces, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to go back to the Shield, don't you? At some point, especially if you want to detour Reigns and find interesting things for him to do. I mean, that group was That's an article I got to write.
Yeah, it was broken up.
Bad that breakup was.
Terrible.
That they didn't allow any of the individual personalities to really get out before the breakup. Do you? I don't know what you do. What direction who they'd feud with or whatever. But man, it's like kind of like an elephant in the room with all three guys, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, having all three of them as just these separate entities. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. a little fantasy booking spitballing here. What if you did something? Okay, so they're the Shield protectors. What if you did an angle where Triple H is trying to take over WWE from Vince McMahon, so he hires Braun and Lesnar to help him kind of just make mess of everything, and then that's the reason why the Shield gets back together to protect WWE.
Could be. Yeah, Triple H being off TV, it was kind of weird. Oh, he's just left. I know he had a nice family vacation, but
guys, we're going to get to Triple H because there's something on the agenda we got to mention with him. Before we get there, got to pay the bills. I want to mention we have an official Top Rope Nation t-shirt. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you can see it. I've worn it on the show before. Justin's been pictured wearing it. You can get this beautiful t-shirt, support the show at prowrestlingtees.com/topropepress. And the reason I'm bringing this up is Friday, May 12th, they are having, for one day only, a 20% off sale. So you can get the shirt for 20% off, save probably $4 on the shirt. I think they're $20. And Pro Wrestling Tees, as you know, has some of the best design t-shirts out there. If you're looking for a Bullet Club shirt, any New Japan, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, anybody, Kenny Omega, it's all on Pro Wrestling Tees. So while you're searching on there, check out the Top Rope Nation t-shirt. Kyle, you have
I don't like Lucha Underground. Can I just say that? I've tried so many times.
And I know Justin is a big fan.
Well, I don't know, man. I started watching it on Netflix, and I burnt through like the first, almost dozen episodes, and it's been about 2 months since I watched it. I just can't find the oomph to go back and start it up again.
Yeah, I just don't have the time to watch it.
For me, it's not even time. It's just like, I was reading a random article online the other day about like, it was talking about music, and it's like, at what point do you give up trying to like a critically acclaimed album? Like, and you just admit, I just don't like this. I don't care if smart people say it's good. I just don't like it, right? There's all instances of that like, right? We could think. And like with me, Lucha, I've tried to watch it a number of times. I'm not even saying it's critically acclaimed, because a lot of people who I, follow and read and stuff online wrestling actually don't like it. But I'm just like, this is bad. I'm like, it's kind of like like if you're gonna like rip on the House of Horrors and stuff like that, which I thought, deserved criticism. It's tough for you to then turn around and say, you know what you need to be watching instead of WWE is Lucha Underground.
I think the first couple
acting and like it's so silly.
I think the first couple seasons were pretty widely acclaimed because it was something fresh and new. But once they got to season 3, I think it got a little old for people, and you don't hear about it hardly at all anymore. But
no, I mean, their viewership on El Rey is atrocious.
Yeah, the first couple seasons though, people were pretty hot for it. I know, like in the Observer every week, it was getting rave reviews back then when it started. But
I didn't even do it. Like the intergender matches, it's just it's not something that's cool.
Yeah, well, the Top Rope Nation t-shirt is cool, guys. Check it out.
Yes, it is.
Comfortable.
Buy that. Don't buy Lucha Underground stuff. Buy the Top Rope Nation t-shirt.
If you're out at the bars, the Top Rope Nation t-shirt, if you're wearing it, will get you much more attention than a Lucha Underground shirt. Check it out.
I'll say it. It'll straight up get you laid.
That's right. It's like, that is something right out of a Triple H Evolution promo. Then they have the t-shirt. It said like laid, made, and paid back in the day. Yeah, they had I swear, you can Google it.
I love their video, by the way. You get the line in the sand video, like when it was like Orton, like 2 chicks going at it on his lap. That's like an awesome video.
That is one of the best stables put together in the 21st century. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because Big Dave Batista recently talked about what could get him to come back to the WWE. We know he was pretty critical of his last run. WWE forced him to be a babyface. He wanted to be a heel. What they were doing wasn't going to work, especially with Daniel Bryan getting over like he was. And he said he would return to face none other than his former stablemate himself, Triple H. Guys, do you think a Batista Triple H match, if they could actually get Batista to come back, who is a genuine movie star at this point?
Yes.
I mean, you have him come back and face Would you even be interested in that? Kyle, I know you had some strong thoughts on this.
I could not pick a person I would be less interested in seeing Batista work than Triple H. As far as the realistic options, obviously, I would not want to see, Batista versus Kurt Hawkins. I mean, that would be worse. But
I'll tell you what the money match would be if Batista came back. It's probably pretty obvious. Braun Strowman.
I didn't think of that. I had two options. I did not think of that one.
I'd like to see a
Shame on
Batista
me.
Braun Strowman match. What do you think, Justin?
Well, and from what I read, the problem isn't on WWE trying to get him. It's that they've kind of turned him down. He said he wants to come back, and they're like, we don't have anything for you, which boggles my mind with his movie superstar power now.
Yeah.
That's just weird to me. And it was funny, and I kind of agree with them, but it was also kind of a dickhead thing to say. He's like coming back talking about wanting to work with Triple H. He's like, I'm not going to come back to work with some young guy or to put over a young guy. The only story to tell is with Triple H.
So
Yeah, I don't know.
well, it's fine if he wants to work with a guy. Like if he doesn't want to if he wants to work with an established guy, I had two options in mind. The issue with Triple H is, I've said it before on the show, man, they caught lightning in a bottle late 04, early 05. Like you could not have scripted the way that program went any better. WrestleMania 21 drew. Well, people forget about that. When Batista and Cena were coronated on the same night, it was Dave Batista that drew, not John Cena at WrestleMania 21 in Los Angeles. You're not going to capture lightning in a bottle like that again. It just won't be as good as it was that time. That was an incredible program they had. Those two, when they broke up Evolution. Mm-hmm. To me, the names were the unrealistic one. I think would be Rock, because they had the two movie stars going.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar was the other name I thought, because that was a match that wasn't done when both of them were in the first time in WWE 10 years ago, or even longer than that.
I really like that one. I think that'd be a great match.
And that's another one where it's like, okay, he doesn't have to work with a younger guy and stuff like that. I mean, I think those would be appealing ways to get him in too. Now, to what Justin said, I couldn't agree more. I am stunned by the cold shoulder towards Batista. I mean, like Guardians of the Galaxy, it's not my thing. I haven't watched either movie, but I mean, they're big. They're really big movies. Yeah. It's a lot bigger than The Chaperone, Triple H, or whatever the hell that movie was you did.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling they wouldn't want the guy back. So
wasn't that the name of the movie, The Chaperone? He was like on a bus or something like that.
That thing was on Netflix it might still be on Netflix streaming, but like I would get on Netflix and it would always be in my recommended. Like, why the hell are you recommending me The Chaperone? I'm not watching this. Never even once clicked on it. But I guess they were trying to push it on the Netflix audience pretty hard. If you had ever searched WWE, you were going to get recommended that movie.
Oh boy.
I've got to admit, I was never really a big fan of Batista until he came back for that like WrestleMania 30 run, and he kind of grew on me then. And hearing about the kind of person he is outside of the ring kind of also makes me like him a lot more.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I've become much more of a fan just reading and listening to his interviews over the last couple of years, not just his political takes, which I tend to always agree with, but yeah, just when he reflects back on his time in WWE and doesn't really hold anything back, it's made me like him a lot more. Kyle's laughing. I know he agrees.
They said him and Orton didn't ride in the same car together very often back in the day. Now we know why.
Seriously?
Political takes. No, but Orton, it was Batista. All right, here's the thing. When the Batista DVD they put out, and this was like 10 years. I mean, this was over 10 years ago. I think at this point, it was probably when he was world champion. To me, one of the most jaw-dropping things on that DVD, people can go back and watch this, is Triple H essentially admitting on the DVD, yeah, I made the call to just bury Randy Orton and go with Batista instead. And it turned out to be the right move. But, there was a moment on that DVD, and you can, my eyes jumped watching it, because I always was like, man, they screwed it. Because everyone always talks about that face turn that Orton did in 04. Remember, he wins the title, and then Evolution turns on him. That did him no favors.
The old thumbs down that they gave him.
Yeah. And Triple H goes, he's like, you guys are all talking about this Randy Orton, but I'm telling you, Batista's the guy. And he says on the DVD, I'm like, holy shit, he just basically admitted that, like, yeah, that's why Randy Orton kind of got the short end of the stick in that time period. But yeah, Batista was always hanging out with Triple H and Flair, and Orton had he hung out with like some younger guys, I think like Maven and like Jindrak
Alex Jones, Sean
Yeah, some of
Hannity,
the real luminaries there.
Bill O'Reilly. That was the car that
Yeah.
Randy Orton was riding in.
Mussolini.
Week 3 of the crusade against Randy Orton here on Top Rope Nation. No, I had not heard of that about them traveling though. That's pretty interesting.
I had just heard that recently that they were, Batista was a guy, and that was played a large role in why Triple H was like, the big money programs with Batista, not Randy Orton, because Batista, that's a very like old school type thing, and I'm not going to criticize Triple H for it at all. That like, hey, if a younger guy who's less experienced, kind of wants to go to the learning tree, so to speak, and kind of seems more committed to the job, when the other guys, maybe more into partying and whatnot, allegedly, then, you're like, hey, I'd rather work with this guy. He's going to me for advice, and I think I can work with him. And, again, you can't argue against the success of that Triple H Batista program. It was very well done.
Well, and your choices are Big Dave Batista on one side, it's getting over with the crowd, or the other dude who's taking a dump in women's duffel bags in the back. Who are you going to go with?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Guys, we're kind of getting into an old school wrestling discussion. Well, I mean, the younger kids watching the show are going to think this is old school wrestling. To me, 0405 doesn't seem like that long ago. But when we're talking old school,
I was done with
talking like the 80s and 90s. Yeah. But we've been thinking about starting a new, and this is the brainchild of Kyle Ross. We've been thinking about starting a new segment on the show week to week where we talk about what old school stuff have you been watching. It can be WWE Network, it can be on YouTube, and I'm dying to hear about the one Kyle has been talking to me about here off air tonight. Apparently, you've been watching some interesting 1987 WWF recently, Kyle. So I think this is going to be one of our most popular new segments on the show. What old school wrestling have you been watching, Kyle Ross?
Okay, so they uploaded a ton of prime times to the network. And I love, like, primetime wrestling is such an easy watch. With Monsoon and Heenan, they're always really funny. I quite frankly, I think they had enjoyed, a few mixed drinks before they went on the air and whatnot. But so I'm watching them, and this is like they start upload. It's like right around WrestleMania 3 time. And by the way, watching those is certainly just I doubled down on my take that WrestleMania 3 is the best WrestleMania ever. But anyway, that's not why we're here.
Check out the archive for discussion on that one.
Yes. So it was right around that time. And after WrestleMania 3 goes, they start showing these vignettes, and I'd forgotten about these. I'd watched them before, but I'd forget been a long time. The Ken Patera story. This is something that everybody needs to go and find. You can just find it probably on YouTube, even if you don't have the network. It was a 4-part thing they did. They aired it 4 different weeks, and it was all over WWF television. I mean, that was one of their big post-Mania 3 angles, was the return of Ken Patera. And if you're not familiar with Ken Patera's actual story, former Intercontinental Champion, one of their top heels in the early 80s, went to jail. It's one of the funnier situations ever, in that I believe it was Mr. Saito he was with one night, and I believe it was in Wisconsin, up in your guys' territory there, kind of a region.
We don't associate with Wisconsin.
Okay. And they were trying to get some Mickey D's late at night, and it was closed. And they threw a boulder through the window. So he wound up going to jail. Like, I mean, it was right around the time of, I don't know if there was a place for him on the WrestleMania 1 card, but he wasn't on it, and then he went to jail shortly thereafter. So does his time, gets out of jail. WWE gets this idea, we're going to bring him back as this baby face, this rehabbed baby face. A guy who's served his time, and he's a new man, after being a heel who injured people initially. Sounds like kind of a cool idea, right? But what is so funny about these vignettes is they essentially pin the blame for him going to jail on Bobby the Brain Heenan's managerial ways. Like, that was the hook. And it's so funny. It was like, part 2 is the one you got to watch. And it ends with, what did Bobby Heenan's ways get Ken Patera? A world championship? This was Gene Okerlund doing the voiceover. He's like, no. And it cuts to Patera sitting in a jail cell and the cell slamming shut. And it's like, next week, we'll talk about the downfall of Ken Patera. And I just lost it. I was like, this is incredible television that they actually did this.
So this is on primetime on the network?
Yeah, this was so like they uploaded a ton. They uploaded like the entirety of 87. So
yeah, I think 87 through 89 they put up.
Yeah. So I think you want to start at what it still says newly added, I think, on there. It's not the very first newly added one, but I think it's starting with the second one. They are 4 weeks in a row. Or if you want, I think it's on YouTube because, I talked about, it was a big flop. The whole thing turned into there were a lot of big returns that were flops in that era. By the way, guys, they had brought back from the past that didn't work out. Superstar Graham, Jimmy Snuka, a couple guys come to mind. They couldn't rekindle past glory, but they actually released a Coliseum home video of this. Like, that's how big. I mean, Patera, this was supposed to be a big thing they had. I mean, he had nothing. He was awful in the ring when he came back. He was so bad. So yeah, I've been watching Ken Patera's story and laughing. Good for some laughs.
I can't think of anything I've been watching in particular of old school wrestling. Like, this week's been kind of crazy. I haven't been watching a lot of stuff out of the archives, but I'll have something for you next week on the show.
Okay. Are you going to? We should each go. We'll take turns going 1 week, and we'll just spring it on us randomly. But yeah, Ken Patera, that babyface run was awful. They made a whole Coliseum home video. Like, it showed his first couple matches. That debate he had with Heenan. Heenan took a hell of a bump in that debate.
The first interview I ever did with anybody from pro wrestling when I started writing about pro wrestling was Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Ken Patera. I was like,
no, that was Bobby Heenan. Awesome interview. That dude, super interesting, as you know, but really nice guy. I just sent him an email. I was like, let's see, I was in college. Sent him an email. He got right back to me. He's like, sure, give me a call. Put his phone number in there and called him up a couple days later and interviewed him for about an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know he's been going through some health problems, pretty severe health problems in recent years. So best wishes out to Bobby Heenan.
I know,
it's greatest manager of all time, in my opinion.
It sucks like to see that, and like when you go back and watch. I mean, God, he is so funny in these primetime wrestlings too. I mean, if for nothing else, I mean, the Ken Patera story, I mean, it's terrible. It made me laugh in a very ironic way. But Heenan is incredible. I mean, the gimmick of him saying, and I'm your host, Bobby the Brain Heenan, never gets old on those primetime wrestling.
I did. I will say, I haven't been watching a lot of old school stuff this week. I did go back and watch a little bit of some of the old prime times when I saw those were added. And I went right to the part, was it 89, where he was booted off the show. And then he started doing like the Bobby Heenan show separately.
Yeah, 89. That was 89.
Yeah. I watched a little of that. It was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
So him and Monsoon just had a great dynamic together.
Yes.
Well, I think an argument could be made that Bobby Heenan is one of the top wrestling talents of all time.
Yeah, as far as his announcing ability, it's definitely, to me, he's my favorite manager of all time, and was a great color guy.
In WWF, he was a great color guy. WCW, ooh, baby, he filmed that. And he filmed that in a long distance.
He had plenty to say about that when I interviewed him.
Yeah,
he bashed Tony Schiavone quite a bit in my interview with him, and how Schiavone would always like try to keep plans secret from him. And finally, he was just like, "Well, I'm going to collect my paycheck and go home," kind of thing. And you could tell watching it.
Well, and Schiavone never sold Heenan's jokes.
Yeah.
Like Gorilla did, or even Vince did when Vince worked with him. That was the problem. Like with Heenan, you have to like sell the jokes. So,
guys, I wanted to close on the schedule coming up for next week because there is a lot on the horizon. Although this week was a little bit slow, phoned in television. Next week is actually kind of starting tomorrow night. It's going to kick off a little bit over a week of a lot of pretty big shows. Tomorrow night, you've got Ring of Honor doing their yearly War of the Worlds pay-per-view with New Japan.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the New Japan Pro Wrestling Best of the Super Juniors tournament starting next week. By the way, next week on the show, Justin, you're going to be excited about this. We will have Miss Abby Arthur coming on to talk New Japan Pro Wrestling. Yes, nice. Confirmed as of last night. She has 2 features up right now on topropepress.com. Check it out. basically with a full historical background of the Best of the Super Juniors, and then she went through all the competitors in this year's tournament, full breakdowns of their history. So if you're new to New Japan, or you've been watching New Japan and you just want a refresher, check out our features section on topropepress.com and Abby's excellent work there. So she'll be on the show next week, and we'll be talking Best of the Super Juniors. I think they will have had one or two shows by the time we record next week. And then next weekend on Saturday, you have Evolve 84 in Chicago and NXT TakeOver in Chicago. You have on Sunday WWE Backlash in Chicago and Evolve 85 in Detroit. So there is a lot on the horizon. I don't know if you guys are planning on watching the Ring of Honor show. Pretty stacked card, though. Looking at it right now, it could be Adam Cole's last match in Ring of Honor. Could be on the way to WWE. He is wrestling Hiroshi Tanahashi. That should be a pretty damn good match. The ace of New Japan. You've got Will Ospreay and Jay White. Let's see. We've got Kushida versus Dalton Castle versus Bobby Fish versus Silas Young. Marty Scurll, the villain, who Justin just sent me something on my phone. Marty Scurll just liked a tweet by the @TRNation podcast Twitter account.
What a tremendous Twitter account this is.
He will be wrestling Matt Sydal on Ring of Honor, and the main event is Christopher Daniels defending against Cody Rhodes and Jay Lethal. So those are some of the bigger matches on the show. It's not every match, but I think it's a pretty good show. I'm going to try to check it out this weekend if I get a chance.
I'll tell you what, I was very critical of Cody Rhodes for how he thought of himself when he left WWE. He's done a hell of a job on the independent scene. Let's call a spade a. I'm an honest guy. Cody Rhodes has done an
incredible job.
I think he has. I think Cody Rhodes is. It's really interesting. I think there's a lesson learned that if you think you can be a big star and you're not getting the right push in WWE, leave and show them. They'll take you back. Look at Drew McIntyre.
He has certainly sold a lot of T-shirts. I think that Cody Rhodes Bullet Club shirt is like the top selling shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees. Has been for weeks.
Still think Dustin Rhodes is the best wrestling son of Dusty, but
oh yeah, I would agree for sure. So we mentioned Best of the Super Juniors, and then next weekend, Kyle, I know you're a big Evolve fan after your experience in Orlando. I think that Evolve show in Chicago has a pretty stacked card too. I'm not sure if you know off the top of your head. I
can't remember now. All of a sudden, as soon as you threw it to me, I said, "Oh shit, I'm supposed to know that." But yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it was pretty stacked. I had it written down. Hold on.
Here it is. Matt Riddle and Kyle O'Reilly. That'll
be very good.
Yeah. Zack Sabre Jr. and Ethan Page.
That'll be very good.
Donovan Dijak and Keith Lee.
That'll be great. That was a rematch. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. There's a few other matches, but those are the headlining matches, those three. So if I were going to Chicago for Backlash, I would for sure try to check out this show. This should be an excellent card.
And they bumped it up too for the NXT show. Once they announced there would be an NXT takeover, because Evolve was supposed to run at night originally, but now they've bumped it up into the afternoon. So, man, if you're in Chicago that weekend, you can catch 3 shows.
Yeah. And then they're going from Chicago to Detroit the very next day, Evolve is. And so the day of Backlash, they're in the Detroit area. And that show is headlined by Zack Sabre against Leo Rush, Matt Riddle and Jeff Cobb. And we've got Tracy Williams versus Kyle O'Reilly and Ethan Page versus Donovan Dijak. So let's see. That's a pretty good card too. Mm-hmm. So I think the Chicago card's a little bit better, but
yeah, and I
both
think
shows
they're hurt by running against Backlash. Probably. I saw ROH years ago. I wanted to say this. Right not to say I saw ROH years ago in Detroit. I'm trying to think what venue they ran. It was like, I remember driving by 8 Mile, though. It wasn't a very nice neighborhood.
Is anywhere in Detroit that nice of a neighborhood? Sorry, viewers watching.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I have been to Detroit and had a good time there.
The area around Comerica Park is not bad.
The Palace of Auburn Hills is in a nice area. I've been there. Saw a concert there. Nice arena.
Okay. No, the area around Comerica Park where like there's Hockey Town, the bar. It's like a 3-level obviously Red Wing themed bar. It's a pretty nice place.
Yeah.
I've seen a few concerts up at the Fillmore.
Nice. Well, Detroit is a legendary music city. No doubt about it. So
Also, remember sneaking in. I remember just bombed sneaking in, getting a free buffet in the casino over there.
plus you're not far from Canada. You can go party in Canada while you're at it. Yeah, so a lot to look forward to on the horizon. We don't have the whole Backlash card yet. I'm sure we'll go through that next week.
Yeah, there's only 5 matches right now, as of now.
Yeah, so lot to look forward to, though. So we'll have plenty to talk about on the show next week. We'll have Abby here. We'll talk a little bit of New Japan. We kind of tried to do that when we started the podcast early. We talk about New Japan. Abby was on the show a few times. She's kind of our resident New Japan expert, but it's been a while since we've covered New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we'll try to get that in next week along with the Backlash preview. So with that being said, guys, I think we're going to sign off this week. Any closing comments for you on the pro wrestling world this week? You got anything for us, Kyle?
Gender Mania is running wild.
I am strongly hopeful that Jinder's going to win the title in Chicago. I think there is a chance it could happen. I wouldn't bet on it right now, but I think it's being discussed.
We'll talk about that next week. We'll see how the TV goes next week, but I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they're going to pull the trigger. I think they made a mistake having him hand the title back to Shane McMahon like that.
Yeah, I did. I loved the fact that he had stolen the belt.
Yeah, that was.
I wish he would have kept it till the pay-per-view.
Yeah, that was where the heat was. They took it. I mean, yeah, he pinned him, but I don't know. I loved the heat with him, having stolen the title. They should have kept that going.
Yeah. Justin, final closing thoughts as you head into your weekend this week.
Dwayne Johnson, 2020.
Do we really want another celebrity in the White House? I mean, I'd be on board. I'd vote for him probably. I mean, what are our other choices?
I told people like, we need an outsider. People would say, obviously we have one, but
I think right now is proving maybe we need someone with a little bit of experience.
Yeah, I always
stabilize things.
If your sink's fucked up, you don't call an electrician.
Yeah.
So I don't.
We'll have to see how it goes in France before we judge too much.
All right. Well, that being said, guys, I'm Ryan Drostes, Kyle Ross, Justin Joint. Check us out on iTunes, patreon.com/Top Rope Nation. As always, subscribe on YouTube, and we will see you guys next week.